PSD is, and the Public Service Commission has sets the rates, of course. And those would be, Mr. Milliken, as you say, the most expensive rates for sewage. Which, that, Mr. Walker, that goes to your question you asked. The way it works, to my understanding, is the area served by a public service district in the state of West Virginia. The rates they set for one sewer project are, in fact, the rates that would be set for any sewer project that public service district would build. So, Mr. Freeland, your example of Buckeye, for example, I think is appropriate because Buckeye is not incorporated and doesn't have an authority that otherwise does water or sewer. So if the PSD did decide to go forward with the project in Buckeye, for example, then those rates would apply there as well. One option I believe that would be there if we probably ought to look at this closely because the county is so geographically big, and Snowshoe has sort of an economy, if you will, that's different from the economy in Hillsborough and the other end of the county, for example. We may need to look at the idea of creating an additional or another PSD to serve the area better for Buckeye, to continue your example, because the economics there are quite a bit different from the economics of Snowshoe. And a county commission, I believe, has the authority to create a public service district if needed. So that would really be the
I
option.
disagree with you, but said you've already created a county public service. It's already been done.
Well, there can be an arbitrary number of public service districts in a county. There are several counties in the state that have more than one.
Not when you've got a county.
And also, it wouldn't affect the whole county as it is today in the sense of sewer provided in Durbin, which has their own sewer utility. Martington does too, I believe.
The municipalities, all three municipalities got to run.
So their rates, sewer and water, if they have each of those projects they have, are not affected by the county's public service district rates.
It would have, but I used the example a couple years ago when Durbin was getting ready to give up her charter as a town.
Right.
That's
close.
That's run by the town of Durbin,
Right.
and at that point in time, that would have had to go to the Pocahontas County PSD.
At that point,
and their rates would jump from 10 or 12, whatever they're paying today, to that rate right there.
That's true. That would have happened. I'm glad that didn't happen. So, Mr. Walker, that's my understanding on the PSD jurisdiction and rate impact. The last thing I had, Mr. Creel, was with response to the gravity-fed line. And certainly the gravity-fed versus pump-fed has been a contentious issue and the result of, or the subject of many design changes over the years. And I'm pleased that one design change that the PSD made a couple months ago, I believe was with regard to Mr. Russell Holt's property, and that the PSD elected to go ahead and run a gravity line through his section of property. And so I think that's an improvement.
If it was good enough for that section, why isn't it good enough for the rest section? There's 300-foot drop down through there.
I believe, given the location that the plant's is being asked to be certified for with the certificate needing public convenience and necessity that's in front of PSC now, that given the site location, that the pumps have to be used to get to that site from other places, and that's why the design is as it is.
No, you still have you still have your main pumps. They're there anyway. But now every household's got their own pump, and people's built those houses over there. And some of those developments states that everything's got to be underground. If you put a pump in somebody's yard, you have to have a post, some way to get electric to it, and a meter and a control panel, and that's sticking up. And some of those developments states has to be underground. So
I think that was.
And no one wants a daggone post and stuff in the middle of the yard when they went to a lot of effort to put everything underground. And then you got the sewer coming in. You got a sewer coming in from this direction, then from back behind the house, the power pole, then you got another right of way of power going through the yard. And that crisscrosses your yard. If you're going to build something later on, it ties up your whole yard. It ruins you. And the MBRs is not necessary, and the pump stations is not necessary. That's your big O&M cost right there. Get rid of the M&R.
I'm glad you mentioned the MBR again too, Mr. Creel. I meant to make a comment on that it's a membrane bioreactor, and it's a more expensive, as you said, treatment option. It's technically not required by state law, but provides a finer quality effluent.
But who cares?
Well, a lot of people have cared over the years on the issue, particularly the anglers and such, and that's one of the reasons why the project's taking the changes it has.
That's why somebody from out Ohio or somebody cares.
David,
Well,
we're-
our
we're
Elk
the
River, with
county.
the trout fishery is a prime part of our economy.
that argument's totally upside down. Is the fish that are being put in the stream over there come from over here in our hatchery, which pollutes this stream and this watershed. The nitrates that come out of there are phenomenal. It's, you know, they'd be fined $10,000 a day if you knew what the numbers were if it was a sewage treatment plant. And all that biomass goes in that stream is not pristine, far from it. And what they're doing with the trout in there is what makes it not so. You can go on Trout Unlimited site. The native species are burdened by the non-native species, the rainbow trout and the brown trout. All the biomass that's in there, the chemicals, the antibiotics that are in the fish, that's a mess. And I asked, Frank Jezero, I said, why do you allow that? He said, economic benefit. That's what he said. Head of the DNR. I mean, that's what the sewage plant's for people, economic benefit. But you're wanting to make us pay these rates? I mean, people should be outraged.
Well, what I want...
If it's costing us $10 million less, why are our rates that much higher? That's insane. I mean, there's another way to do it instead of forming a PSD. It could be incorporated. That's another option. Mm-hmm. We could become our own PSD from our incorporated entity. But these rates are ridiculous, and the stream, it's what it is. If we have the DEP and the DNR, Environmental Protection Agency, we have to meet those guidelines. Why do we have to exceed them here? People in Charleston don't do that. People in Loudoun County, Virginia, don't do that. But why is it being burdened on us? SBRs are fine. Non-pressurized, gravity-fed is fine. These are burdens we shouldn't have to bear. And you should be reviewing what the Public Service District Board is doing here. You should be intervening. Those rates are ridiculous. You were going to save us $10 million. How did our rates go up 25%? Highest in the state. You should be outraged.
What upsets me the most is that the project hasn't broken ground yet. As far as Charleston, I understand what you're thinking, Mr. Friel. As far as Charleston's compared to us, I mean, let's look at Charleston for a moment. In Charleston, the DEP, the water spill that happened there, the chemical spill into the water. The Elk River on our end is a far different stream than the Elk River in Charleston. And part of the reason, again, that we're here is because of all the issues about trying to keep the elk as pristine as possible on our end. And, so the MBRs, if that's what the Public Service District votes on and decides, then that's their will. And so far, my understanding is that's what the project's going to be.
How we're making use of that stream today is not in its best interest with trout fishing. It unequivocally, no hands barred, is not an environmentally sound thing to do. It's just not. It pollutes this stream over here where the hatchery is. I'd argue that there is an economic benefit, but it's a good argument. I mean, it really is. We live in a region of the state where there's a disease here. It's social economic depression. You have drug abuse. You have people dying of diabetes, overweight, crime, lack of jobs. Those are all symptoms of the disease. And that's why we get to do these economic beneficial projects, to improve the economic situation here. And we're in desperate times, and then we put this down people's throat and pay for this. This is ridiculous. To pay this amount for something, there's no way we should be paying this amount for this. It's ratepayers. We're the ones paying for it. You were going to save us $10 million. And how do we end up paying more in rates if you're saving us $10 million? It's covering a smaller geographic area with more homes, 300 roughly more ratepayers than there were previously. So you add that in there, it's even worse than 25% increase. Heck, it's probably a 50% increase. It doesn't make sense. The math doesn't add, do the math. The math doesn't add up.
Yeah, this project, it was about an 8.5 mile project, and now it's about a 3.5 mile project. Cost of $25 million more.
Many of those decisions in reducing the scope of the project were handed down to the PSD from the state.
No,
Yeah.
county runs it.
No,
And you've done it.
the state DEP issued many of those decisions. We don't need to.
SBR's not, pressurized not. Those are decisions the
Those are
PSD made.
decisions from the state.
And those are probably the two most costly ones there, as Kermit said previously. Sorry.
I think the bigger problem here is if we intervene, then that's going to cause more delays to the project.
That's okay. Who could care? I don't care what you do.
And this needs to be done.
Oh,
So,
I don't care if it's ever built. I mean, you already spent, you
you
already
don't care
spent.
if it's ever built? I mean,
Well, right now I don't, because I don't want to pay the fee either. At one time, it was a project that was a good project for the county. It was an infrastructure project, something the county needs. Now it's a burden on the county. Because of who? The county commission.
Mr. Friel,
And I'm just asking you to
there's
correct
been
it.
a lot of
That's all.
community input on this, and this is where we are. And the PSC is now listening to the certificate of convenience and necessity application. They're looking at that, and
I'm asking you to intervene and to stop it.
thank you, Mr. Friel.
Could I reiterate this, please, David?
Yes.
An intervention, or maybe to intervene, obviously, yes, but to request the presence of the PSD board and review these decisions, the decisions for the going away from the SBR. There's no reason to do that, or the pressure. It can both be done without it. Those two things alone should be considered, if nothing else. And those are the big cost factors here with this. And they're not necessary. We weren't told from the state to do that.
Correct.
I mean, we have guidelines what the discharge can be. And as a matter of fact, what's not in here, I don't believe, but was being forced on us when I was on the board previously, when we were working with Thrasher Engineering, was a cooling system. That was being touted as being done. Well, that's not in this one, I don't believe. And if it was, it'd be even higher.
Right.
Why isn't that in there? If we're doing the MBRs, why aren't we cooling? We should be warming the water up too, because if
Maybe
it's not the ambient temperature, we might have to warm it up. We might need to put heaters in there. Heck, let's do a
Maybe
few
it's
more
a
things.
compromise, you know,
Pardon?
all the issues considered, trying to weigh the best options and go with what they feel they can go with and what they can't. But that is a question for the PSD. That's what they decided on at this point. The matter is before the Public Service Commission. I think the best thing to do is to try to move forward with this project and break ground.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. Okay, I estimated $5,000 delay of delays. But however, with these rates, you were going to save us money. You tested.
Yeah.
You testified. That was
Yeah.
under oath.
Well,
That was under oath. It's not walking down the street. It was under oath.
If you look at this,
Co-
the first thing.
Back us up on this and save us that money, and
At that
go
time,
and do a line by line.
Mr.
Do a line.
Melody, at that time, the Public Service District estimates that the cost of the project will not exceed $21 million. Now, it's been several years since that time, and the estimates have clearly changed, and that's been a matter, of course, in public record for continuity, for ongoing in this project. And it certainly doesn't please me that the rates are more expensive, and it's sad that the rates will be the most expensive in the state. But the question is, if we want this sewer plant, what are we going to do?
If you,
so
another
this
way
is
to
where
look
we're
at
at.
that, Richard, is to the inflation cost. The inflation cost is, we'll say 3%. You multiply it out, it'll come out about $700,000 a year. And so you can, so you multiply it, so add another 7 million to 17 million, and you come up with 24 million with the rate. So it's still not, this way you're going right now is still another, what, 15 million more. And it just,
The West Virginia
and
Public
those
Service Commission sets the
years,
rates.
yeah, they need a sewer system. And they've wanted one, they needed it for years.
I'd like to see it built as soon as possible.
And, well, you need to do it right though. I mean, if you've got to delay it another day or two or something, this summer, whatever you got to do to get that cost down where it's affordable, then I think it's up to you all to do it. I think, I mean, you know, I could take it to court and I could go through a court system. I don't have the money to do that, you know, or nobody else does to fight a big court system. And the right thing to do is just to do what's right. And the way it's been done. And you go over and ask you go to those PSD meetings, and I've been to most of them, not all of them, but I've asked dozens of questions.